got it. I'm with you.
I forgot to last time.
Sorry, Shauna.
All right, now, Shauna, take it away.
All right. We are the Connect Academy teachers from Weston Elementary School. Patrice Martinez teaches kindergarten. Erica Hammond teaches first grade. Holly Cirillo teaches second grade. Courtney Glendenning teaches third. I am Shauna Winter, and I teach fourth grade. Elizabeth Levere teaches fifth grade. We were given this book called Connecting with Students Online by Jennifer Saravallo to study together. We've attempted to collaborate from the very beginning, and that is the only way that we have survived this far. The book was another way presented by our principal and Mrs. Gephardt to sharpen our skills as we move forward, and we really hope to share some of that with you today. There's 6 chapters in the book, and we attempted to become an expert at one chapter each. We'll see if we're there yet. We will share an overview of each chapter, some different strategies the author presented, and then some connections that each one of us made as we read the chapter. Towards the end of the PD today, we'll share a resource folder and a few videos of students that we've had this semester. We hope to both support and validate all the hard work that has been put into virtual learning so far. We're in the same boat with each one of you, trying to make the most of the situation, one mistake at a time. A quote I tell my students all the time is that mistakes are proof that you're trying. And so we take that as heart as well. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat and we will try to keep up with them as we go. Because collaboration is the name of the teacher game, hopefully we'll have some time at the end. We will have a question and answer session. If you want to reach out to us in email, we're up for that too. We would love to learn from you as much as we hope to take away something from today. I will send a link of the Prezi in the chat at the end. So first up is Patrice, and she is going to share with us about holding true to priorities as we move online.
So hi to everyone, and as Shauna mentioned, I am a kindergarten teacher here at West End Elementary, and I found in reading the book, just as in the classroom, one of the first priorities of the year was building relationships with students. But what was different about virtual was that you were also building that relationship to a deeper level with the parents because they were there every day. That was intimidating and difficult at first, and to be honest, sometimes it is still difficult and intimidating, knowing that when you turn it on, you're going to have 19 kiddos, but 19 parents sitting there with them or caretakers. The adults in your classroom are learning strategies to help their child. So this is a priority, is building a relationship with them so that you can help them learn and they're open to learning the new strategies. I take breaks during live lessons, I take 15-minute breaks, and that allows for children to get the opportunity to share something personal. Those little side conversations that you have with kids in your classroom, it's important to have in virtual learning too. So they get to show me, something special that happened over the weekend, or just share those moments that you might miss out on if you don't make time for it. Also gives parents the opportunities to ask questions during those breaks if they're working on something and they didn't, understand exactly what happened or how to do something. I check dojo messages during those breaks and emails. During that time too, just to make sure they're positive and supportive. Next slide, please, Shauna. So it's saying my internet connection is unstable, and I'm at school, so hopefully it'll continue. Building engagement through morning circles, incorporating puppets daily, I feel like that has been a huge help. We use a script for social emotional learning, and I incorporate those puppets, and the kids love that. Especially young kids are going to come in and they ask for Tomcat and Tabby Cat during, if the lesson if I didn't have time that day, is Tomcat coming back tomorrow? And so that incorporates engagement. Doing as much live instruction is important for especially those younger learners, so that you can answer questions right as the questions pop up. Guest speakers also keep students engaged. And I had Navajo and Lumbee American Indians visit the week before Thanksgiving, and the kids love having visitors. I have also worked on picking up, the parents will pick up packets at school with manipulatives in them, and they bring them home, and that makes math really engaging. They, I'll take out my snap cubes, and they have snap cubes encounters as well. Parents are really quick to just come to school, and those packets are outside the school, and they grab them and take them home, and the kids can use them and practice with them and play with them. Another priority is to keep clear and focused direction instruction on skills and goals. And, we might teach through themes, but keeping clear and focused direction on skills, those skills can be repeated throughout various themes. And it makes moving through your lesson intentional, because time is so essential in virtual learning. You don't have the amount of time that you would have in a classroom setting. The third thing that I have found is that access. So I talked about a little bit with building relationships, but just making yourself available face-to-face Google Meets and Google Hangouts with the parents or with the children coming back later on in the afternoon to work on something, to reteach, to clarify, a skill that they didn't pick up the first time around. And so I just really work on allowing those parents to come back and giving them that opportunity to do that. The last thing I wrote on there was let parents help. They are really wanting to help and work with. And so I've had parents offer, different opportunities. They'll have resources that they can hand out or find a guest speaker. I actually had the parent find the firefighter that brought him in. So just building that relationship allowed them to, and being approachable, allowed them to be able to help as well. The fourth thing is emotional well-being, and it was my big takeaway from this chapter. My predictable schedule is really important for the kids because they learn the routines and they learn the rules much better if you keep that predictable schedule. But we also know that we all have to be flexible in that, because technology is not predictable. That's one thing we've learned. And so the kids know that too. And because the technology might change. And I'm going to move to the next slide, because the last thing here is where it says take care of you. There was a connection that I made that Jennifer Saravallo empty cup. And as much time as virtual learning has taken, especially just learning different ways of doing things, you can work into the evenings, late into the evenings, if you allow yourself to. But taking time away, and my colleagues are going to talk about, one of them are going to talk about those schedules that we make. Taking time away, enjoy reflecting on your day and what went well is really important. And I do that by taking a walk. I go out and I enjoy the outdoors and really think about what went well that day. And that actually helps take care of myself. Finally, and very importantly, is build relationships with your team and surround yourself with that strong team. We've supported each other professionally and personally in the last several months when something's not going well. Sometimes I get nervous, like if Google's not working or my internet's not working, but it's really great and reassuring when I get a text message or a message from my team saying, hey, Google was down. And I was like, oh, it wasn't me, and it's just makes me feel a lot better about what I did. And they always, offer to empathize. So that PLC is really important. You're not alone when you're home teaching virtually. The leaders, the administration that's involved too, joins your PLCs and who, offers solutions to the issues and really works with you. So that's it for mine.
I think it broke up when Patrice said it, but you can't pour from an empty cup. That's something we will remind ourselves a lot. Courtney's now going to share about how to partner with adults at home.
Courtney, you're
mute is on.
muted.
Goodness gracious, see? Technology.
Do you guys wish we had a penny for every time that was said over the last year?
Yeah, then I would be rich and doing many other things. So as Shauna mentioned, I'm Courtney Glenn Denning. I teach third grade at West End, and chapter 2 of Sarah Vala's book was all about developing a partnership with the caregivers in the students' lives. And chapter 2 really talks about and hits home with welcoming the parents as part of the classroom. And in doing this, you're helping the child to succeed both academically as well as social and emotionally. You know, as virtual teachers, we've recognized that parents need to have a big part in the classroom, as Patrice had mentioned. And so we do have a little bit of a struggle sometimes of the parents helping too much and wanting them to help even more. So you can go to the next slide, Shauna. And so in Sarah Vala's book, she outlines some strategies that actually help to alleviate some of these difficulties. So the first one I mentioned, which was welcoming caregivers into an online classroom. And this really needs to be a priority because you want from the very beginning the parents to recognize, I will need to give my child some support, but it's also really important to mention to them that, hey, your child does know everything that is happening in the classroom. They have learned it all. So if there's an issue, we need to have an open line of communication. If they're needing more support, we need to have that open line of communication where you can tell me that. And that's just how we all know where to move to with the student, if they need stronger interventions or if you need to give them a little bit of a challenge. The second strategy is to survey students and families. And I'm going to talk about this in a little bit with my connections, but this is something that I was very hesitant to do at first. And this year I took the leap of faith and actually implemented this. And unfortunately, we didn't get the book until the middle of the semester, but there's even using the book. Next time I survey the families, I'll even implement some different things. The third strategy is to share the weekly schedule, notes, and support. And this just helps with the predictability of your day. And the sharing of the notes and feedback with the students, it gives the parents the ability to know where to go if they are supporting their student. The fourth strategy, I really did not do in the beginning of the year, and it came back to bite me. But it was recording how-to videos for using technology. So that was a big thing in Sarah Vala's book that she emphasized would help the parents and help with the partnership. And then the fifth strategy was to encourage families, encouraging them to set routines, a schedule, and then my favorite part was actually encouraging families with advice for frustrations. And so we all know how frustrated it can be on the teacher end for this, but the parent end, they have different frustrations. And so I really enjoyed reading about how Sarah Vala, how she would kind of get the parent's perspective. And this way, whatever curveball was thrown at them, they just know there's a light at the end of the tunnel and you guys are on the same page trying to support their child. You can go ahead to the next one. So some connections I had to this chapter. First, with the welcoming parents into your classroom, it just helps to set the precedent for the entire school year. So we all had a back to school night. I incorporated a presentation into mine, and you can kind of see the layout that I used in one of the images, but it kind of gave the parents the ability to see what was going to be expected, kind of go over some issues that they may have, whether it be devices or internet connection. And it ended with a thank you and just a message about us being part of the team and really looking to push their child forward and help their child to succeed. Another thing in the beginning of the year that I attempted to set up to welcome parents into the classroom was a classroom website. And this was a great way for not only the parents, but also the students to meet the teacher. And here, if I were to go back and do it again, it would have how-to videos of what to do for the technology, and even more about supporting the parents in the classroom, like a question and answer type of thing. So you can go ahead to the next one. The next one I'm going to hit is surveying families. So as I had mentioned, back in March, we were kind of thrown for, well, we were thrown for a loop, something that's never happened before. And I had to rethink communication completely with my families. Thank goodness I had a rapport with them, because if not, it would have just been a hot mess. And so some of my colleagues, they had surveyed some families to see what the issues were, how much time things were taking up. And I did not take that leap of faith. Nobody wants to hear what they are not doing correctly. But this year, knowing that I had to change it up a little bit, I did implement this. And this is something Sarah Vallow talks about in her book. But I started the year with an interest survey, just gauging kind of what issues we may have, whether it be medical issues or technology issues, and that kind of I was able to set the stage for the year. And then about a month into school, because we had such a learning curve with everything that it needed to be about a month into school. I had set up a beginning of year survey, and it gave me an idea of how where to go, and then I'll do one at the end. But in Sarah Vallow's book, going back, she gives some great questions, and so that's what I would add to a new survey, and it would guide me even further. The next thing I would do is hold a parent night. I held a parent night, and this kind of gave the parents some housekeeping advice. And my main reason for doing it was I was going on maternity leave, but we were able to bounce ideas off of one another for this. Go ahead, Shauna.
Okay. All right, next up is Holly, and she's going to share about planning and revising curriculum units for online instruction.
Great. So planning was the hardest part of virtual teaching for me in August. I'm sure it was a bear for all of us. We had to build our curriculum, and so clear communication with our students and families really helped to ensure that we were able to connect as a learning community in the virtual classroom. So we are planning instruction in a time that it is hard to hold our students' attention because so much is going on around them. We have to ask ourselves what is essential in regards to what we're teaching, pair things up and cut things down. We either have to create the content, find it, or modify what we normally use in order to make it digital for our students to access it. So this takes a lot of time, and this chapter helped me because there's a 5-step process with strategies to help us with these tasks. Keeping things simple virtually is key. Next slide, please. All right, so the strategies in the book are to identify goals and skill progressions. So we need to rethink the normal units we do in the classroom. So in the classroom, we can do a 4 to 5 week unit, no problem, but we want engagement in our virtual classroom. So we have less lessons and we need to teach the content. So they need to be short and sweet so we can keep our kids' attention. This will allow us time between lessons to really have those small groups, to plug in interventions, and to offer support sessions to our students who need extra support. If we can find anchor text, those are great. You can use those over and over again. Short, thoughtful, digitally accessible texts are great. Epic is a great resource for that if you're looking for free text. Any kind of a text that you assign, you want it to be able to be digitally accessible just so your kids can actually go and they can read it and use it. So if you can find double duty text that you can integrate reading and writing, those are awesome. And try out what you're going to ask your students to do. My son's in my 2nd grade virtual class. And I have 3 kids that they are all virtual. I've got a 6th grader, a 4th grader, and a 2nd grader. It has been super helpful for me to see their side of things, and especially my son's side of things, because it helps me to really stay in my time constraint. But also, if I have a link that I share out to my kids, I can try that link out before I share it, because it might be on Seesaw and it might open great on my computer, but it might not be authorized for my students to open it up. And if I can troubleshoot that and get it approved through IT beforehand, then I'm avoiding a potential storm on Class Dojo times 18, or how many kids you have. So with assessments, we can use a variety of those. We can try out new digital ways to do that. We have everything from Google Forms to quizzes, and we have to find out what works for our class. So we can try lots of things out. And organization, you know, just really going into Google Classroom and putting things by topic and trying to make it so it's point and click, and putting those weekly learning calendars and things like that in there so our kids can go and they can click and go off of PDFs on the go. That's amazing. And like it was said before, routines are awesome. Next slide, please. So this is my favorite slide, because this is kind of the make and take resource slide. So Screencastify has been a godsend. When I'm upstairs teaching in my virtual classroom at home, if a door opens and a dog runs through at 10 o'clock at night and I'm pre-recording a lesson, I can go right back into Screencastify and I can cut that part out. So that has been super helpful for me. It syncs up well with Seesaw as well as Google Classroom. And I've really enjoyed that. I can choose how my kids see me. I might be embedded in a little webcam at the bottom. I might be teaching something full screen. Or if I'm doing a desktop tutorial, I can actually take that webcam off and not embed it. Seesaw, Flipgrid, Quizzes, Kahoot, Gimkit, Teachers Pay Teachers digital activities. Oh my goodness, there's a ton of stuff that you bought. I get daily emails where they're telling me, hey, you have a TPT digital activity that's open. And so I'll go in and I'll find a beloved resource that I used in my classroom that's now digital. And I can assign it straight through Google Classroom, and I can get my kids' results on TPT and import, you know, just go ahead and put their grades in on Google Classroom. And I love that. Snip and Sketch tool. That's a lifesaver. I can snip and sketch big ideas, student PDFs, and I can get them on Google Slides so that my kids can do them, because I teach 2nd grade and they'll say, well, what page is this? But if I can put it on that slide, they can see it. And I'd just like to give a shout out to Liz, who just shared with me Cami, as well as Shauna, who just shared Epic Pen with me, which is a great way to draw on those slides or on the screen. So check out Cami and Epic Pen, and I'll get that added on here. So if you can share documents with your kids, and they can share with you on Google Docs when they're writing, you can go in and give them feedback. And the biggest help resource-wise for me has been to just hit the Google button. That's what I tell my kids all the time. How do I log into Epic? Just hit the Google button. Clever? Just hit the Google button. If they can just hit the Google button and not have to memorize a ton of passwords, that's going to really alleviate some user frustration in your classroom. Next slide, please. All right, so this is one of my students, and my kids did a virtual book report project. And so this is something that my peers did in the classroom. We can still do these fun things, and my kids shared it out on Flipgrid. They love Flipgrid. So this was a fun project, and we can still do projects. We can still celebrate the ends of our units and make it fun for our kids and build that classroom community. Next slide, please. And this is Seesaw. I love Seesaw. Our school purchased Seesaw so that we could use it K2. And this is my son, who's actually, he posted a picture to respond to a STEM project that I gave them. Seesaw gives them choices, and I can go in and I can give them feedback and ask them to revise things that they turn in. I can put scores on their things. I can use drawing tools, and I can write right on them. So Seesaw has been awesome for that. And so still do projects, still have fun with it, and make it your own. All right. And that's it.
All right. Now it's Erica, and she is going to share about managing your time across a day and across a week.
Hey guys, okay, so I'm Erica Hammond, and I teach 1st grade virtually at West End Elementary. And as a mom of a 1st grader, kindergartner, and preschooler, I can tell you that Managing my time has been one of my biggest struggles. Here I am teaching virtually first grade in my 12th year of teaching, which is something I just never thought I would be doing. But here we are. I started the year out feeling as though I needed to answer every email as soon as they came in, no matter the time or the day. I found myself meeting with parents at 5 in the afternoon or even 5:45 in the morning if that is what worked for them. I was constantly available. I found myself not being able to walk away from work. It was like I was starting all over again. I was a brand new teacher. And I remember one Sunday evening, my husband looked at me and he said, "You are burning the candle at both ends." And he was right. I found that I was burning out. I had to find some sort of balance that began with finding a better way to manage my time across the week and across the day. Unfortunately, I didn't get to this book until I was halfway through the process of finding that balance, but it still helped me to find my time and evaluate my expectations going forward. In the book, Sarah Lalo talks about how your goal should be to create a weekly schedule that allows you to do good work, all the while taking care of you and your family. Shauna, if you'll go to the next slide. So there were 6 big takeaways for me. The first one I'm going to talk about is understanding the pros and cons of synchronous and asynchronous teaching. This was a struggle for me. I wanted to record everything. I wanted to be live for everything. You know, we're so used to having them right there and interacting with them, and it was quickly kind of taking its toll on me. And one day I had a parent reach out to me and she was like, "I just want to tell you that my daughter really loves when you do the recorded lessons because she feels like it's just you and her and it's one-on-one." And I was like, the light bulb kind of went off. I was like, okay, so there is value to this. It's just all about finding that balance for what works for you, and understanding that both of these can be, both types of lessons can be very valuable. The second big strategy that I took away or takeaway for me was inviting your students online with you in some form each day. So my kids meet with me every morning. We have a morning meeting, and then we kind of alternate our live and our recorded lessons. So one day they might be live with me for reading and reading small groups, and they might be recorded for math and social studies or writing. And we kind of bounce back and forth between that. And it works really well for them. So they're getting, live and recorded for both, but they're meeting with me every day. And that's really crucial for building those relationships. And it's just been, for me, it's just something I just needed to have happen every day. Another big takeaway was plan and record. So I thought in doing this, I was just going to pick up what I did in my classroom and I was just going to drop it down in this little virtual classroom and it was going to go smooth. I did not take into consideration that I was going to be competing with their toys and their pets and their siblings and breakfast and all of these fun things. And I realized that about 10 or 15 minutes into the lesson, they weren't even paying me a lick of attention. They were done. So I really had to hone into these micro mini lessons and get to the meat of what I really wanted them to take away from it. And I saw huge success with that. The next big takeaway I kind of want to talk about which was another big one for me, was identifying those office hours and sticking to those. So after, the 5:45 meeting I had one morning and my husband's like, "What are you doing?" I really just kind of decided it was time to really, identify my office hours and really stick with those. It gave my parents the opportunity to hop on and ask questions, and kids could hop on. I have an amount of time where anybody can hop on if they need extra help, if they have questions about assignments or any housekeeping. And they, once they started really utilizing that, I noticed that the emails, the texts, all of the things kind of went by the wayside after 4, and the parents kind of realized, okay, well, I can get her the next day and it'll be fine. And that was crucial for just my own well-being, but also to parents. It gave them the reassurance that they had a time where they knew they could get a hold of me and get their questions answered. The next big takeaway is preserve space for professional learning and collaboration. This was huge this year. You need your squad. I've learned so much for my PLC this year. Resources and tears have all been shared and shed. They've been crucial, learning new technology pieces or just troubleshooting. I didn't go to school for IT, but I feel like I can hold my own at this point. It's because these ladies have helped me work through this process, and they're like, well, hey, did you try this? And it's been huge for us. And then finally, another big takeaway, and I'm going to talk about this on the connections page too, Sean, if you want to go to the next part, is map out a weekly calendar. This is huge for us. I share this with my families every Sunday evening. It has everything on it, from what live sessions happening to what recorded sessioning. I have links to just about everything. If it's an activity that I can post a link to that's printable, parents like that because they like going between the Seesaw app or Google Classroom and then actually having that handwriting piece right in front of them, which is huge in first grade. They love that. I encourage that. And we've shared different, none of us do it the same way, but we all have like great little things that we could share. So in the resource folder, you're going to find that all of our schedules or learning calendars are on there, and you can kind of use that as a guide and figure out what works for you. So finally, I just want to say, just remember to give yourself grace. This is a learning process. It's constantly evolving. My kids and I joke, there's going to be a glitch of some kind every single day, and that's okay. And we just roll on with it. And at this point now, it's just the norm. But just find time for yourself and remember to make yourself a priority sometimes. Thanks, Shauna.
Thank you, Erica. All right, Liz is going to share about supporting students' practice at home.
Yes, we all know in the classroom and even in the digital classroom, it's very important that practice is a big part of their learning every day. Independent practice, they should be able to do this on their own with little to no help. Excuse me, and it needs to be meaningful. So we're going to talk about that. If you'll go to the next slide, Shauna. There's a couple key things that need to happen every day for your kids. Read. They need to read every day. It could be a book. It could be online. It can be they can listen to a podcast. Younger students can listen to books on Epic or YouTube, things like that. Even your emergent readers that may be in second grade, they need to listen to a good reader's. They need to hear that every day. So 20 to 30 minutes, depending on their age, closer to 20 for your younger kids, 30. Sorry, guys, I'm talking about that. 30 minutes for your older kids. So my fifth graders can read 30 minutes sustained reading every day. Another thing they need to do is math every day. Now, it doesn't have to be from your practice, your independent work from your lesson, but it needs to be something, some kind of math. So it could be for younger kids. I have a first grade background, so I can think of, taking coins or taking, sticks, whatever, pretzels, whatever you have, and putting it on a 10 frame and practicing it that way, counting on. And for my upper level kids, 3, 4, 5, they need to practice multiplication, division, addition, subtraction every single day. On Clever, if you log in with your county account, I'm sorry, I am struggling with the frog in my throat. There is a program called Extra Math, and it's really great. The kids go in through their Clever account, and they can practice every day, and you get the data, so you know where to support them if they need it. Another thing they need to write every day, and they need to write in a journal, okay, and not necessarily online. They need to write in a journal. It needs to be on paper, and the point of this is to get them off the screen as much as possible. So I know that's kind of crazy because we're talking about, learning online, but they need that break. They need the break from the digital. So they need a journal. Writing journals are very important. And also give them a time every week to share something out of their journal. It can be whatever. It could be a story they had, a story they share, or a story that happened in their life, something they made up. And it's also good for their social and emotional development as well, that they can share their feelings. If they're feeling isolated, if they're feeling alone, if they're feeling scared, and it's a good way for you to kind of intervene if you need to. Engage with content study every day. This is your science and social studies. Keep them with their hands on something at all So for instance, science, and I'll show you some examples in just a second. So for example, when you do a project, have them do projects. They need to keep their hands on something. So projects every day, or at the end of a unit, you don't have to do them every day, but projects present things from social studies. I know Jill Tyler and I are coming up with something for our 5th graders about, kind of a wax museum online. They would dress up like their person they were studying. So keep it as interactive as possible. Another thing is plan for students to create and move every day. This needs oh, now it's not working. This can be the arts, this can be music, it can be whatever. They need to move their bodies every single day, especially the younger kids. K2 need to move all the time. Most of them 4 or 5 need it too, 3, 4, 5. So if you'll go to the next slide, Shauna. Some connections I made and some things that we do is giving them access to paper books, not just digital books. They need that in their life because that's what they'll have when they are good readers themselves. So a couple of ideas that were in the book: baggies by bus, books and meals. When they come and pick up their meals, they can pick, exchange books, something along those lines. Another thing you need to think about, if you are having them read online or listen online, you need to teach them the strategies to make them successful. So if you're having them reading digital on Epic, or listening to podcasts, listening to books on tape, reading a PDF online, then you need to teach them strategies, how to comprehend that. So that needs to be like a priority. Now, another thing is you can create short text packets to use during your small group reading time. And this can also engage in discussion and drive discussion, which is really good for kids, especially when they don't see a lot of people other than their family members all day long. Writer share every week, I talked about this. Flipgrid, they love it. Google Docs is another way for you to do this, and you can give feedback live like right then or later. Screencastify to record themselves. My 5th graders can do that, and it's super simple. They can do that. Art lessons is another one. There's thousands of them on YouTube. The authors have created drawings from their favorite book. Dave Pilkey is one of my faves. So if you go to the next slide, Shauna, these are just some examples of my kids doing long division, doing their math with paper and pencil, and this is a whiteboard, for example. Then they did a project. We just finished the genetics unit, and their ending project was they had to create a family, and they had to show that family with the traits. So they had to show them with the recessive and dominant traits, and they all had to look alike, and they all had to have, physical traits and non-physical traits. So they had to have all of these things, and then they had a presentation to go with it. So this is my kid and his mother, father, and the child. So another thing my kids love and has been really helpful are digital notebooks. You can find them on Teachers Pay Teachers, but you can also go to like Slides Mania or any of those free Google Slides, and you can download a template and change it and make it yours. It takes a little work, it takes something to go into it, but it pays off. Like, they love it. My kids love it. And it's another way for me to go back in and check, so I can go back in and check it. I just assign it on their Google Classroom, and they share when we're done, and I can check it that way and just give feedback. So those are some things that I took away from this chapter. And this is a really good book, guys. If you get one, it's a really interesting book.
Well, I have the privilege of being last, and so I am going to share about methods and structures for teaching online. So 3 main points to summarize chapter 6. The first being find options that allow for a variety of whole class, small group, and individual lessons. I'm pretty tech savvy, and I use Google all day in my physical classroom, but August was brutal for me because I thought I could just do the same thing online, and I couldn't. And so I had to rework what I did, and so I still am reworking that. One thing we always start with is a morning meeting. We take a whole group, and that might be the only time I see some of my students all day long. And so I try to hook them in as much as possible in that morning meeting. We play a game every morning to build that class culture, and then we have live math meetings in the morning, and then small groups and office hours in the afternoon. The second one is be clear and explicit as possible in giving feedback. I'm a talker, and so I knew how to push that down. The book, when I read it, it helped me to remind myself that sometimes less words make more impact, especially in upper elementary students. The third bullet, do not implement everything in one day, and do not feel pressured if you reach children differently than others. We all at Weston are sharing ideas with you today, but we all do it differently, and that's okay. Above all, we can't do everything in one day, and not even maybe this whole school year. I know for me in the spring, I had to step back from social media because there are way too many perfect teachers and perfect moms out there for me to compare myself to. And I knew that I was spinning in place trying to compare. So backing away from that, the Pinterest, the TPT, and all that kind of stuff, sometimes it kind of does your soul some good. Strategies that the author shared in the book. Number one, convert your live mini lessons to recorded micro lessons. A couple of us have said the same thing, and it does come back up in every chapter. At the top, a piece of research. It shows that attention falls off after watching a video for 6 minutes. So we probably have very little people paying attention at this point. And that for optimum length for student engagement is 3 minutes. I know when I read this chapter, I was knee deep in making 30-minute videos, like I was in my classroom with my hands and making details about everything about the standard. But then I realized that about 2 minutes into those videos, my fourth grader had another tab open, or they were yelling at their brother. And so I had to rethink how to record those lessons. So I try to record 5 minutes or less and have that posted before every live meeting. And so hopefully they've hopped on, got a preview, and then we can move into that independent practice. On that, number two is monitor and guide students' independent practice. I've taught kindergarten through fourth grade, and even in fourth grade in my classroom, I have my friends on the carpet in front of me, and I don't let them leave me until I think that they can do it on their own. So online, that gave me a run for my money, and it still does. But there's been a couple things that I've been able to do to keep that going as much as possible. Number three, confer with students both live and when schedules do not align. I've heard from everyone in the district that how much time you spend online, it kind of differs for all of us. I can't sit for 8 hours a day on a Google Meet. It does none of us good. And so I've had to come up with ways to give feedback and bridge those connections with students that were not only on a Google Meet. And number four, set up and support reading and writing clubs. When I read this, I hadn't even thought about that. I tried a book club. I started a few weeks ago. I found 3 books. There was a PDF version online, so we all had that taken out, and we couldn't find the book. We met 2 days a week, and then I would make 3 breakout rooms. And then in each breakout room would be with the book that they're reading. There would be some discussion questions that I gave them. And then the students were able to just to read a chapter to each other, and just listening to them read to each other and enjoy that made my teacher heart happy. Some connections I made as I read this chapter. To use a lesson plan outline to keep recordings explicit and short. Make a plan before you start recording, or make a plan before you get on live, because if you don't, you kind of go astray. I put an example of this mini lesson that I have found recently online. I didn't create it, I just recopied it on a Google form. It's a short way to activate, to tell, to do, to try, to go. And so just snip it down. Another way that I've been able to use as short videos is on a Wakelet. A Wakelet does not require any login. So in the middle is an example of a Wakelet I posted when we were doing text structures. And so I might have a YouTube video where I've hooked them. I have a video of me showing the strategy, a Jamboard activity that I want them to visit, a Google Classroom assignment, all those things in a Wakelet, and that's pretty and user-friendly. And all those together might have been 30 minutes, but simply just taking those apart in 5-minute little snips, the students have been very motivated by that, and I've seen a lot of good things come from that. One other thing I made a connection with is Google Forms. I use them in the classroom, and thank goodness I've been able to use them online, because grading for so many students online is a beast. 2 examples of how I use Google Forms. I put an example of the math review in the resource folder. The Teachers Pay Teachers, she has them in every grade. I take it and then I change stuff to match our pacing guide. So each morning we do Monday math review, Tuesday math review, and then the next day in live meeting, I can go over the data. We can look at the questions that we did great on, or the question that we're still working on. I can share out that their accuracy was 93%, and how we can keep getting better with that. So the data from Google Forms has been a winner. For Big Ideas Math, I don't know about you, but for me, even in 4th grade, my students kind of struggle getting onto that website sometimes. And so I honestly just had to say, I'm not using it anymore, the website to do the work. And so I put questions in a Google form that I might want. If we might be doing lesson 5.1, I want them to do 10 through 15. 10 through 20. I just pop those onto a Google form and then put the answer in. So when they submit it, they automatically see feedback, even though I'm not physically there with them. And then I don't have to run the risk of them not sending me the picture. So that has been really helpful. The other connection I want to make, so tracking that independent practice. Jamboard is not new for any of us. I know we've heard about it all this year. I didn't use it in the classroom though. So as I was using it this semester, I thought one day, well, I share my Jamboard and they watch me, but what about if I just send them the link to the Jamboard? And so then we both can work on it collaboratively. In the first picture, you'll see where we played Pictionary and morning meeting one day. I just put the link on the stream beforehand. I say, hey, you want to play Pictionary? Open it up and be ready to go. And so this is a picture of a turkey a student drew, and then the students can type it in the chat of what they think the turkey is, and then I can call those out. In the middle is an example of a Jamboard. I was in a small group with some friends doing multi-digit multiplication. I could model a question, and then I would say, okay, now you do one. And I can see them step by step what they're doing. And so if they get caught up on a certain step, I can say, hey, watch out, you didn't multiply 3 times 2 correctly, or you didn't regroup. And so Jamboard in edit mode, the send to students has been a big changer for me. Just yesterday, I had a student say, hey, I'm struggling with number 8 on math. Can you help me? I couldn't get on a Google Meet right at that moment, but I was like, hey, hang on, I'll make a Jamboard for you. I opened up a blank Jamboard, solved the question for him, sent him the link in private comments in Google. He hopped on and then he put a little sticky note saying, oh, I get it now. I see what I was doing wrong. And so it was a way for me to help with independent practice, but not being on a Google Meet. The Notice and Wonder, I gave a copy of that in the resource folder. They read a nonfiction article and then they just had to put a sticky note of something they noticed and wondered. I don't know what it is about sticky notes and Jamboard, but kids love it, no matter the age there. The last thing I wanted to make a connection with is when you can't be on live meets all day, making those connections and building that culture and those meaningful times together. Email has been huge for me this year. I love how it's been opened up by the district that you can email each other. So once a week, I sent out an email. Then the 5th week email that you see on the screen, I shared about how my 2-year-old got a new trampoline that weekend. I told them something that was going on, and then I asked them a question. And then I gave them a picture. So it was this meaningful connection that I could have with students one-on-one. I know classroom culture has been really hard for me to recreate it online. And so those little things that I could do to make those connections with students. On the right, several of us mentioned this, but I just want to give it again. The private comments on any Google Doc or Google form or anything else is so powerful just to be able to get on. Let's say someone on this example, I said, hey, check slide 2 again. So I returned it. So then she fixed it and returned it back to me. That went back and forth several times during the day. And at the end, I could tell she got it correct. So it's just that back and forth. That same student at 10:15 every Friday morning, we have a one-on-one date that's pre-scheduled. We go over things that she struggled with that week in math, and then we preview for things the next week. I know in 4th grade, when I pull students over to my table in the classroom, you kind of get that feeling of, oh goodness, everyone knows that I'm struggling. But it's awesome online that no one has to know that. It is me and you. And I've seen confidence with students that I don't know if I've ever had confidence in things, just to be able to meet without everyone knowing what's going on. A couple more things before I wrap up. Book club breakout rooms. I shared about that. Friday lunch bunch. We come together and eat our lunch on Friday. We might play trivia, or we just might talk. I'm thinking about changing it in the next few weeks, maybe to do some interest breakout rooms. So maybe the boys could get on Friday. They could talk about Minecraft, Fortnite, and the girls can talk about something else. On Thursday, we do Thursday virtual trips. We might ride a roller coaster at Disney World or go to somewhere in the world and take a look at that. On Jamboard, not academically, but just putting a blank Jamboard on the stream and saying, hey, tell something to somebody good today. The kids love to snip and post and all those things to each other. So those are the 6 chapters that we have talked to you about today. This resource, we've made a resource folder for each chapter. We've dropped a few things in each one, and we're going to continue to wrap that up this week. We hope that you can use some of those resources. And if you have anything to share with us, it's edit friendly, so you can drop it in there also for anybody else. There's also a couple of videos of students that we've had this semester and a parent's point of view. Any questions?
Real quick, I'd like to give a huge shout out to the Connect team. Everyone that's been working on the Connect resources and just supporting us, as well as our diffs. Our diffs are a blessing because they can help us get links approved and troubleshoot stuff. So we appreciate you guys and all that you do for us.
And I love that Shauna mentioned, are there questions? As they started out, they really shared that this is everybody's journey, but they've given you some very specifics. And as we think about, as Holly just mentioned, knowing that Connect's gonna reshuffle a little bit, a lot of this is perfect to bounce into what's getting ready to start second semester. So any feedback, I do want to give a huge shout out because I see Sean Krinsicki, their very proud principal, has joined, and I will tell you, Sean, they knocked a home run. They have done an amazing job. So any thoughts for the group or anything, any questions that you have? Because they really shared some quality stuff to support our digital engagement for our students.
I'm going to put the link to the Prezi in the chat.
I don't know how much time they spent just kind of mentioning the book itself. Donna's the one that brought this book
thank you.
to our attention. Is my voice off? No.
No, we got you.
Okay. Sorry, 15 of these today. But it is a great little companion book to kind of sit on your desk and use. Are you guys all going to be Connect teachers next semester? Yeah. I think it was useful. Would you all agree that it was a useful book, like a little companion, if only to validate 90% of what you're already doing, and then give you a few little tips to think about or some resources to think about? I'm very proud of this group for being willing to dig into this book, and I think the effort to actually dig in the book and be thoughtful about it and be able to teach the book has helped them be better teachers. So I'm really happy that they took the time and energy to do it, and I strongly encourage that you pick up a copy of the book. Now I sound like I'm selling something. I'm not. All right.
Actually, Sean, I said for the folks who came today, I was going to give them a book. And for your rock stars who haven't purchased, you have 2 that got ahead of me, they're getting this book. So we'll trade off for you. I have to figure out something for the 2 rock stars who had already purchased it. But Ashley, please make sure you sign in. The link is in the sign in piece. Shauna, you added another link that is for?
I added the Prezi presentation and then the drive for the Google, and I saw someone else talk about Wakelet. I was just posting a recent Wakelet that I have just so you can kind of easily see it. It's really easy to use on all platforms. I was trying to find a way where students had to log into one more thing, and so that's been a good one for me. And talking about collaboration, I know if we move into the spring, I only have 1 school now. I'm going to have 3 schools in January. So I'm hoping that we all make that branch together to lean on in, and not only each other at West End, but at other schools in January.
And I think you heard their journey as a PLT group coming together and the things they shared. And I just have to go back to what you heard Holly say at the very beginning of this. They've gone through almost an entire semester, and she learned something brand new today from Shauna and Liz. So I think that's part of the journey as we get better and better at what we do. Shauna and team, you're getting some great thank yous, great ideas for the Wakelet. And I know Francis had asked about the Wakelet. So Francis, you've got some rock stars that you can reach out to but it does go on the iPad. The Epic Pen.
Yeah, that's what Holly, I just shared it, so I know you could verbally hear it, but just type it. It's just like Cami, but I don't have to log into it. I know when Google is in presentation mode, you can't write over the screen a lot of times, and so Epic Pen will go over anything.
Oh.
Well, I have someone's daughter in my class. That's me.
That's awesome. Well, Ashley, please make sure you do the sign in. And if there are no questions for the group, they have done a phenomenal job. Give them a huge either a reaction or a hand clap. We appreciate so much what they've done. And Sean, any last thoughts for this wonderful group?